Hey everyone, Sean Deveney here from Heavy Sports. We're here to talk a little NBA. I've got Steve Bulpett here, our NBA insider. Steve, how are you this evening?
Doing fine, sir. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Glad to hear it. A little bit of NBA talk here as we are on the eve of training camp. It feels like just yesterday that we're in the NBA Finals, and then, of course, you and I were hanging out in Vegas at Summer League, and now here we are, ready to start the year.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know this past week, last week, I went back out to the University of Dayton, my school, to teach for a week, and I realized the first day it was the first time I had worn long pants since the last game of the NBA Finals.
There you go.
Summertime comes, it's shorts and flip flops, babe.
Yeah, and now we're back to the grind here. Now, speaking of getting back to it, one guy who won't be getting back to it right away is Lonzo Ball in Chicago. Obviously, they are a much better team when Lonzo Ball plays than without him. But they seem to have. It seems like the Bulls have, maybe insulated themselves a little bit against the knee problem that Lonzo's having. They like Ayo, the rookie last year out of Illinois, Dalen Terry, who they just picked out of Arizona. They like, and he could get a shot at some playing time from what I've heard, even though he's a rookie. And of course, they went out and got Goran Dragic. Alex Caruso can fill in at the point guard. How are you feeling about the Bulls right now without Lonzo Ball? Do they have enough to sort of make up what they're missing with him, or is this a team that could be in some trouble heading into the year?
Well, first of all, smooth segue.
Thank you. That was good.
That they teach you that sophomore, junior year at Northwestern. Look, I think the Bulls are fine for these first few months, right? I mean, it's regular season basketball. They've got a team of hustlers. They'll do all right then. But I'll still go back to what we've talked about in the past, Sean. I think they need to make a semi-significant move if they're going to deal with the other teams that are being looked at as above them in the NBA on the Eastern Conference food chain anyway. I think they need to get better. I think it's going to require a move. But Goran Dragic is a guy I really like him. I think he's the kind of guy that's going to be able to allow them to keep their head above water. Ayo, I thought he was kind of a revelation last year, and just Alex Caruso, when he went out, that really hurt them as well, last year. So, I think the Bulls will be fine for now. But the larger question is going to come when they get healthy. Are they really able to deal with the Milwaukee's, Boston? If Philadelphia is got its game together, if Brooklyn has got its head together, I still would see those teams as being real difficult matchups for Chicago.
Yeah, and one guy I didn't mention in terms of their point guard crew is Kobe White, who I think most of us would have expected to be moved at this point. I'm not sure if he's going to get an extension. He's extension eligible at this point, and is probably their best trade piece. He's still on his rookie deal, which means, of course, it's a lower. I think he's at about $7 million. That makes it harder to put him in a trade and get back a player who's, where you're trying to match salaries. If you want to get back a $16, $17 million guy, it's not going to happen if all you've got is a $7 million guy that you're sending out. So, a little bit of an issue there for the Bulls. But, I do wonder if they're going to regret not trading Kobe White this offseason when they probably had a chance to do it.
Yeah, I think they're going to regret not making a move. But then again, they might have been one of those teams that was waiting to see what was going to happen with Kevin Durant. Not that they were going after Durant, but they're figured to be a third or fourth team involved if anything happened. Having said that, I still think it was pretty clear early on from what the Nets were asking for that they really weren't making a good faith effort really to try to trade Durant. They were asking for so much that it was, they were not going to get it. And I think they knew that. So I think teams that might have held back on some other moves they could have made will look back and say that was perhaps a missed opportunity.
Yeah, a lot of talk about Jay Crowder, and him possibly getting traded. I don't know that the Bulls will get in on that, or that they'll have any serious discussions there. But he seems like to me that would be a really good fit for Chicago. They seem to really, when they lost Thad Young a couple years ago, they seem to miss that sort of veteran, tough guy leader. And I think Jay Crowder could bring that sort of element to them. So I wonder if that's maybe somebody who could wind up being a fit there.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think he'd fit, but I still think the Bulls need a little bit more. But then again, yeah, Crowder's the kind of guy that can give some of these Eastern Conference wings a hard time, and that's what they need.
Yeah. Certainly, if he can shoot the way he did in the bubble, he would. He might make an all-star team if he were to do that for 82 games. Another team that's sort of waiting on what's next here is the Warriors, and they're looking at their situation with Andre Iguodala. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? He has been silent on that so far, but we're expecting something soon. If he decides to retire, is that something that really costs them? What does he bring to that team in your eyes that they might miss if he does retire?
Well, first of all, I would suspect that the Warriors already have a good idea of what Andre Iguodala is going to do. I would think that after, as long as that relationship has gone on, that he would have given them some solid signal about what's going to happen. Andre is a really good cohesion guy. I think he's really good for that team, and the experienced hand. We saw him, with limited minutes come in and be able to do some positive things for them. But I also think the Warriors are at that point where some of these young guys, they're going to want to be playing them because they're going to be coming down to situations quite soon where they're going to have to choose whether to pay them or not. And that's going to be, whom they pay is going to be a huge part of their process, their roster process in the next couple of years. So, maybe it's time for Andre to move on. But if it's reasonable, I think, they wouldn't mind having him around, but they may be going in different directions.
Yeah. I mean, I think they wouldn't expect him to play a whole lot, but he does. You mentioned that he does have that sort of effect where, you get into a game and things get a little helter-skelter. You put Andre Iguodala in there and things kind of calm down. And, he's a great backup ball handler, a guy who can contribute that way. And that's something that they're lacking. I mean, they've got Jordan Poole behind Steph Curry as a backup point guard, but they don't have much else. They might be forced to play the rookie Ryan Rollins a little more than the second-round pick, a little more than they'd like. Just because they don't have a lot of backup ball handling. So that's something where, just on the floor, you can talk about everything that Andre Iguodala does with players off the floor, with his leadership, 18 years in the league. But on the floor, he can still do some things that really do help them.
Yeah, having those kind of guys, I believe, is important. Having veterans in the room, especially when your team is going to be going deep in the playoffs, especially when you're a team that needs to develop their young guys, as the Warriors do. Again, they've got a really ridiculously strong veteran core, right? It's what's won them championships. But they're going to have to start transitioning here soon. And they can't, hold back those guys' progress. I think this is going to be an important year for Wiseman. I think I'm leaving somebody out. Who one of the rookies from this past year? Not Kuminga, the other guy.
Moody, yeah.
Moody, yeah. I think he's going to. I think they're going to be looking for some things from him. And I think Kuminga is like, is in a kind of a show me situation with them. They're going to want to see something from him. I don't think they deny or doubt his basketball skills, but wanting to do it in the NBA and wanting to go through what it takes to be able to provide that over the ridiculous NBA schedule is, I think they have questions about that with Jonathan Kuminga. So they're going to want to spend minutes on those guys. And again, like we've talked about in the past with the Celtics, they want to keep their older guys a little fresher when they can. They don't want to overuse them. You know, you've had injury issues with Steph, with Klay Thompson. The way that Draymond Green plays, he's always, you know, one dive for a loose ball away from, you know, hurting something. So these guys, they've got to start turning the corner a little bit and seeing what's around that corner with what they have, because if they want to draw this window out past the point of where their veterans are far and away their best players, then they're going to need to develop these guys and at very least see what they have in them.
Yeah, I think Steve Kerr's been pretty good about that, about finding ways to get guys minutes early on the season, even if they don't necessarily intend to play them in the playoffs. And you know, that's something I think the longer that this veteran group stays, like you say, they're going to need to do that more and more.
I would agree.
Yeah. One other thing, Steve, and that's Ben Simmons. He's going to go on JJ Redick's podcast. You know, who knows what he's going to say. You know, I've never interviewed him one-on-one. I've interviewed him in a group. It's not the most thrilling interview. I'm curious what he's going to say, how he's going to explain what's happened here in the last year. But I just wonder for Nets fans and for people who are watching that team, what do you think is sort of fair to ask of Ben Simmons? What do you expect from him this year?
I think Ben Simmons is in a ridiculously good situation for Ben Simmons. A lot was asked of him in Philadelphia, things that he should have been capable of doing. But things like the outside shot, which he never developed, you know, the ability to make really good decisions in the playoffs. Still remember that series against Boston a few years ago. Yeah, he was young, but I was stunned by how poor his decision-making was. He's in a place right now where all he has to do is play defense, which he's perfectly capable of doing and doing really well, move the basketball, something he got criticized for when he didn't take shots in Philadelphia, one in particular that, okay, yeah, even if that situation arises in Brooklyn, he's going to have to dunk the ball. But you know, he's got people around him. He's got shooters around him. He's got outside shooters around him. He's got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving around him. Move the ball, make the defense have to honor you, but just with your movement. You don't even have to get out on the wing and stand there and hope someone comes out to guard you. But I think that if he's physically capable of staying together this year, his back, his head, whatever else, that's a great situation for him. He's going to be able to be in the weeds a little bit and not be the front and center kind of guy that I think he seemed to recoil from that spotlight a bit, more than a little bit in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and you know, I think the one thing is, and I agree with you, that he's in such a great situation because there'll be so little pressure on him to score. But at the same time, you know, there's a lot of time they are very small in terms of what they've got up front. And there's talk that he could play a bit of center, maybe a lot of center. And I just wonder, for a guy who hasn't played in you know, almost 2 years and you know, just is adjusting to a new team and you know, is maybe a little gun shy to be, is it tough to throw him in a situation like that and say, hey, why don't you go play center? You know, you haven't played in a while, you're a point guard, but actually we're going to play you at the 5 here.
I mean, you know, do what you're asked to do. You know, you're part of a team that, again, if it gets his head together, can do some real damage. I mean, they've got players, okay? Brooklyn can play. What's going on with the Nets from the shoulders up is a big question, and it's, you know, certainly a huge question with Ben Simmons. You know, I don't know. I think it's really simple. Maybe I'm being naive about it, but dude, just, you know, do be a good teammate. You know, come into the season saying, you know, what can I do here to fit in? It's not about going out and getting a bunch of numbers to establish yourself. You're an NBA player. You're on a good team. What can you do to add to winning? And you've got enough guys around you that'll take the pressure off you. He should be getting, if he just moves without the basketball, again, you want him to move it, but move without the basketball, and he should be getting easy looks, layups, because you have to throw extra bodies at a Kevin Durant. And Kyrie Irving, for all his weirdness, both the perceived and the real, dude can play. He's a major scoring talent, and he's going to attract extra defensive help. And if you're the size of Ben Simmons and can move without the basketball, life should be good.
Yeah, he should be able to get, 12, 14 points just off of, cutting to the rim and just getting open because, like you say, there's going to be so much defensive attention on Kevin Durant and Kyrie for that matter, that if you just cut to the rim, you're going to find yourself with, 5 or 6 layups.
And if you got Seth Curry and if Joe Harris comes back in good form, you got guys that are spreading the floor.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to call any plays for Ben Simmons, or Ben Simmons shouldn't need plays called for him. Just, get out and play basketball, almost like it's pickup. Get out, run the floor, run off picks, move. And stuff should be there for him. We look at their offseason and say, well, that's just, that's crazy. And it was. But, if they get their heads together, that can be a frightening team. We looked at the Celtics beating. Well, the Celtics swept them in the first round. They were all close games, and that's with the issues they had, the injuries they had, etc. If you had a healthy Ben Simmons to who the Nets were in the first round this past year, did they not get by Boston?
It's a fair question.
You can make that argument pretty strongly.
Yeah. Well, we'll start to see some real basketball or something close to it, preseason basketball. Just days away, really, Steve. So a lot to look forward to. Thanks for joining me. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And remember that you can check out Heavy Sports, check out the NBA section for all the NBA coverage that you will want. Thanks, everyone, for being here.